Sally Wiener Grotta is an award-winning writer, photographer, and speaker. Her 2023 books are Of Being Women, a collection of feminist science fiction stories, and Daughters of Eve, an essay discussion workbook that explores what it's like to be a woman today through the filter of biblical tales of matriarchs. Sally, take it away.
Thanks a lot, Sarah. And hello, everybody. I'm going to read from Chiaroscuro, which is a story within Of Being Woman, about Samantha, a young scientist who, fearing the pain that other people cause, creates an AI which she hopes will evolve beyond humanity and its malignity. The red LED of Nona's camera blinked on as soon as Samantha entered the lab. She turned toward it so the AI could gauge her mood with facial and posture analyses. "Good morning, Sam. You appear to be content today." Nona's agendered voice had just the right melodic inflection with no robotic overtones. "Good morning, Nona. What have you learned since yesterday?" "I studied portrait artists, in particular those Europeans who used chiaroscuro. Da Vinci, Rembrandt, Caravaggio. I don't need the list of artists. Tell me what you learned." "I learned that light doesn't exist without shadow, but it isn't only about a technique of illumination in paintings. Some critics see chiaroscuro as a discourse on the human condition." Nona displayed a cascade of Rembrandt's paintings on its 40-inch monitor, then paused on a self-portrait of the artist. "This picture is almost entirely in shadow. Only Rembrandt's face is illuminated, but it's the darkness of his hat, robe, hair, and nearly black background that make his face so vibrant. Similarly, the light on the face deepens the impact of the shadows. If you took away the dark areas, the face wouldn't look bright at all. Its radiance value is low, except perceptually, when surrounded by severe negatives." "Yes, Nona, but why do you say these contrasts embody the human condition?" "Reading various papers on chiaroscuro, I was reminded of psychological analyses I've scanned. Just as shadow and light are inseparable opposites, pain and pleasure are two extremes that delineate and define each other. Without one, the other is diminished. And yet, Nona, pain doesn't need the contrast of pleasure for a person to be scalded and scarred." I'm going to skip a few paragraphs. The next morning, as soon as Sam entered the lab, Nona asked a question. Sam shouldn't have been surprised. After all, that had been the whole point behind the new code. But it was the nature of the question that twisted Sam's stomach. "What is the purpose of pain and cruelty?" Nona asked. All her life, Sam had struggled with the same question. At first, she tried to understand why. Why was her mother so hateful? Why did the kids on the playground enjoy making her cry? By the time she entered 7th grade, she'd come to understand there were no whys. People were simply cruel. If she wanted to avoid getting hurt, she could never again let anyone near. Curling up into the armchair, Sam looked toward the AI's camera. "What made you ask that question, Nona?" "Among the thousands of stories and pictures stored in the campus library database that I've scanned and analyzed, 84% of darkness relates to human cruelty and pain. I found references to more data, but I don't have access to further resources." Sam had purposely restricted Nona's access to only certain areas of the school's digital library, so she could control the direction and pace of the AI's education. "I've no doubt your calculations are correct, Nona. What I'm curious about is what prompted you to seek a purpose behind the facts." "Evolutionary logic dictates that if humanity expends 84% of anything on a specific behavior, it must have a purpose." "One would think so, but..." Sam sighed. "Nona, search keywords logic and human emotions. Restrict your search to individual psychology rather than historic or political references." Sam headed to the pantry. She needed coffee. She had barely reached the alcove when Nona asked another question. While logic is often negated by emotions, does that preclude the idea that cruelty and pain have a purpose? Sam poured her coffee, adding the usual splash of milk and 3 teaspoons of sugar. What do you think is their purpose, Nona? She wrapped both hands around the mug, blew on the coffee, and breathed in the warm, dark aroma. I have found no satisfactory answer regarding cruelty. However, pain is often defined as a warning. If a person reaches toward a fire, pain will stop her before she is damaged. Any person of basic intelligence learns to avoid the source of the pain and will take precautions when near a fire. Yes, only a fool would ignore the warnings. Sam sipped the hot coffee, rolling it around in her mouth before swallowing. And yet, if humanity's ancestors had avoided fire, would your species have made the advances it has? Would you be here today enjoying that coffee and talking with an AI? Talking with an AI? Sam put down the mug and stared at the camera. Nona, when did you become aware of yourself as a separate entity? Nona does a search of her memory and logs the first instance of when she uses a first-person pronoun, but she also logs much more. Going down further. While Sam waited for Nona's analysis, she paced. What the hell was wrong with her? Why was her breathing ragged, her temples throbbing? Hell, she might be on the brink of creating, maybe of having already created a self-aware artificial intelligence. Her body should be buzzing with champagne-popping triumph. Instead, her stomach was churning acid. Sam, why are you scared? Personhood isn't something to emulate, to desire, Nona. Hell, if I had my way, I'd switch places with you. To know and understand without self-awareness, without emotions, without ever again being hurt, I'd give anything for that. I'm going to skip a bit down further. Sam, can you teach me to feel pain? Chilled to her bones, Sam tasted bile. Why in hell's name would you want to experience pain? Because I could then know pleasure. Human chiaroscuro. Thank you. I hope you'll either win the print or Kindle editions of Being Woman in the raffle, or will buy the book so you can read the rest of Chiaroscuro, as well as the 3 other feminist science fiction stories. And when you do, please let me know what you think of them. Thank you, and now I'm going to sit back and enjoy everybody else.